Welcome to the Odds Checker Aintree Grand National meeting. Day 2, the Friday preview. I am joined, as ever, to my left by the Odds Checker tipster Andy Holding, by racing journalist and broadcaster Tony Calvin, and Odds Checker's jockey ambassador over the jumps, Nick Schofield. And we've already done Thursday, so if you're coming here having not seen we've done a Thursday podcast, not seen we've done a Thursday video, that racing hasn't happened yet, then do look out for it. We're doing a Saturday one as well, so 3 videos in total. And we're going to start with the handicap hurdle over 2.5 miles on the Friday. Brio Conti 8-1, One for Rosie 10-1, Canardier 10-1, Mont des Avalois 14-1, Poker Play 14-1, Cateson 14-1. Big old field this. And I'm going to start with Nick to my right, who should have a ride here. So can you let us know who you're hopefully going to be riding?
Topham for John Joe O'Neill.
Currently is priced up at 16-1.
Yeah, his second run in a handicap, one of 125 at Wincanton. Did it for me quite nicely that day. I think out of the Cotswolds, Wicked Willie, a few in that race have come out and won since. He only has 10 stone 4 if the top weight stays in on Friday, which is a nice racing weight. He's a progressive novice. He's running, he started off very slowly over 2 miles against Owl Dance and finished nice, encouraging races. I thought the handicapper was quite kind, giving him a mark of 125, and he obliged, being put up to 131 now, so he's gone up £6. Goes there every time. Progressive novice. I'd like to think he's better than his mark of 131. Still not a definite confirmed runner because he could. The owner's a northern owner, and he might want to go to Ayr. So it'll be Aintree Ayr for him. But he's a real nice horse, and he's worth noting where he runs.
And if you don't get that right, is there a possibility of looking at
I scored Mont des Avalois yesterday. Felt in very good order for Paul Nicholls. Obviously, Paul's horses are flying. Again, progressive novice from last year. Looks to have a nice racing weight, and like a lot of Johnny Delahaye's horses, they progress with time, and he looks like one of them.
Either of you two flagged up either of those two in your reckoning?
Certainly Topham. I put him up that day at Wincanton. I think he was man out that day. And got the job done nicely, went through the race smoothly as Nick said. Thought he had a bit in hand because he caught my eye in a couple of very good time figure races, novice hurdles. If he got in, he'd be a serious danger because of his cruising speed and his freshness as well. I think that's another point. The two out of Cheltenham really which stand out to me here. I think the Coral Cup was a very good race this year, often is, went the way of William Henry, but it was a massive bias to one of the horses that raced wide. Yeah. You went back and watched that video there. Anything that ran well up the inside, it was day 2 on the new course, it got churned up badly on the first day. Jockeys that went round the inside basically wanted, shooting really. It's probably slightly harsh. It's just schoolboy area. I mean, it's blatantly obvious. I mean, I know there's like 30 odd runners and you think something's got to go towards the inner, but if you've got a jockey that's almost deliberately going down here trying to save ground, Robbie Power did it. I mean, he should have known better. He did it 2 days running and he hardly got in the shake-up. And Robbie Dunn did it on what's called Canardier, who was a sneaky fancy for Irish connections. The ground probably would have gone against him. He wouldn't really want soft ground. All his best forms on good ground. He'd run well the time before at Cheltenham when he beat a horse who's gone on to win a graded race, John McConnell's horse. So I massively upgraded him. He basically had no right to finish 5th, given the way he got ridden by Robbie Dunn. He's entered in this 2.5 miles race. He's also entered in the 3 mile race on Saturday, but I presume this will be the race he'll come for. Again, the ground's key to him. If it's no worse than good to soft, then he's a big player. And Brio Conti also went through that race like a good horse. I noticed Paul Nicholls had entered him in the Grade 1.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And I would have backed him for the Grade 1. He reminds me of top of the game. A horse, a bit of a boat of a horse, bit of a shell of a horse. He's definitely going to be better in time. Looked a bit weak and a bit sometimes not all that coordinated, but he was good when he won at Ascot when he wasn't fancied. And he, like I say, tanked his way through the Coral Cup. But he also arguably got there too soon, just like top of the game did the year before. Didn't quite get home, but I think he's got an absolute shed load of talent. But the ground wouldn't be an issue with him, and he'll go well for a long way. So I'd probably at this stage, if you could give me 2 each way bets there, I'd be flabbergasted if one of those two just at least make the frame, given they're running the Coral Cup, Brio Conti and particularly Canardier. if they don't go around the inside again.
Worth pointing out here, I should have said at the top of the show that we are recording this on Tuesday afternoon, so we are not quite sure yet of the runners, and that'll be fairly evident as we make our way through the card. Tony, what do you like here?
Nick's already mentioned, actually, Montezavois is my safe choice in the race. I was surprised that the handicap has dropped him £3 for that Betfair hurdle run, albeit it was disappointing, but I think the step up in trip could suit this horse. It needs to be ridden cold, the horse, and I can see him, travelling really well into the race. I'm not sure who's going to ride it because Lorcan Williams, who rode him at Ascot, is on Mr Fizz, and Mr Fizz, albeit 11-year-old and the complete outside of the field, is also on my radar if he gets all clear. And like I say, Lorcan Williams is already jocked up, and I just thought the step up in trip would really suit Mr Fizz after what was a really good run in the county hurdle. I know he was beating a fair way in midfield at the end, but he was up there a long way, and all his previous best form for his previous handlers has been over this longer trip. He's been eased in the weights since Cheltenham. Like I say, I think the step up in trip will suit. Now, we don't know what the ground is, but I'm leaning towards soft. I'm assuming it's going to be soft on the Thursday, drying out a little bit. All its best form has been on decent ground over hurdles so far, but it's only run on soft ground once over hurdles, and that was a bit of a blowout. But if you go back and have a look at his flat form, he's got some really good, decent flat form on soft ground. So even if it is soft, it wouldn't bother me. I just thought odds of 50 to 1 plus, and I imagine you'll get bigger with extra places come Thursday afternoon. I thought Mr Fizz was potentially very, very interesting off that kind of mark, stepping up in trip after, like I said, it was a good run at Cheltenham. But for me, yeah, if you're going to play safe, I think Montezavois, it sounds like he's going to go for the race. I think the handicap has done him a favour, and I think the step up in trip will suit. I think it's going to be, whoever gets on him, it's going to be a nice creeping ride, and he'll be delivered late because he does tank for his races. He did disappoint me at Ascot, but I'll be inclined to forgive him that.
Can you shed any light there on the the jockey bookings? Why maybe Lorcan's riding Mr Fizz if he rode?
Lorcan's ridden Mr Fizz when he was with. He used to ride him when he was
I'll
with
be honest.
Hales.
Paul Nicholls clicked his fingers. Lorcan won't have a choice in the matter because he's a young conditional. Paul Nicholls holds his licence, so if Paul actually wants him, he'll say right. Paul's quite.
But he knows he's got a top class jockey.
Paul's quite convincing. I've been in Lorcan's shoes before. He might well want to ride Mr Fizz, and Paul will be like, "No, you're my jockey," and that's that. But I think
he might have sacked him after Ascot, though.
Well, yeah, you just don't know. Like you say, we're only on Tuesday, but I think you got to remember one for Rosie in this race. Won the EBF.
Or did he?
Yeah, I don't know actually what happened, did it? But he's still off 143. I think that sets a standard, and if the top weight stays in, off that racing weight of 11.2, I love the way it went through the race. Probably nothing went right for it in the race. Went very wide at Sandown and still come through like a very good horse. I think everyone else. I think one for Rosie is the one to beat.
The interesting, we should just mention it, just signing off on the race. First, I'm at Henderson horse from Gwilym Cabrook. I wouldn't have a clue if he's well or badly handicapped, but that's
Always interesting seeing those for those connections being sent straight to a race like this, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously the market doesn't always get it right with his first time at Henderson ex-French horses, but it'd be interesting to see how that goes in the market.
Absolutely. So moving on to the 2 mile novice hurdle now. And Itchy Feet, I think, leads the market if I can get the market up here. Yeah, Itchy Feet is the 4-1 favourite. Fakir Dairies, who we discussed a little bit in the Thursday podcast and video, is 6-1. Precious Cargo 6-1. Aramon 7-1. Southfield Stone 8-1. Felix Desji 8-1. Band of Outlaws at 10-1, who we do not expect to see here. Brewing Up a Storm and Mr Fisher both 12-1. 14-1 bar. You mentioned on the Thursday edition that you thought the Supreme was a good Supreme. A couple of horses coming out of that into this one, including the favourite Itchy Feet.
Yeah, I must admit, going into Cheltenham, I didn't fancy either of the two Ollie Murphy horses on the ground. I thought they both won quicker round, or certainly their best form coming into the festival. Had been on a good surface. Itchy Feet won an unbelievable race because it was definitely a race where you needed to be handy. Often is the Supreme. And Ruby was always travelling well at the head of affairs on Classical Dream. He was in cruise control throughout. and he had the horse to quicken away. So the two that made the upgrade, need to be upgraded, made the ground. One of them was Itchy Feet. He's gone by good horses in the latter stages, incredibly eye-catchingly. And like I said, given the time figure was better than the Champion Hurdle, and certainly the back-end sectionals were, I mean, he's beaten a lot of good horses if you compare him to the older horses. So I think the market's got this absolutely bang on with Itchy Feet. I suppose the slight issue is whether Ollie Murphy decides to run Bruin up a storm as well, because he's also entered in the 2.5, and that's the theme with this race. A lot of these have got the Saturday entry as well.
Yeah.
You know, what's JP McManus going to do? He's got 3 in the race. Facca Duduris, of course, 1. Star de Vol and Epitone was a bit of disappointment in the mare's race. But he's also got Champion, the 2.5 mile race on the Saturday, so you'd imagine that he'll stick with him over the 2.5. So what does he do with Facca Duduris? He's got to run it somewhere if they are going to go down that route. And of course, Nicky Henderson's got a couple of doubly entered horses as well. Especially Precious Cargo, we don't know how good he is. His overall form doesn't look that good. He only beat a horse called Rose de Masse, who got beaten off a mark about in the 130s in a juvenile handicap the other day. I found this race at the moment a very difficult betting one. I don't think there's massive angles. I think Itchy Feet, I think he's fairly solid at 4-1. He's still 4-1 of the few firms. If you can get round about that price even on the day, 4 to 1/4 the odds, I don't think he'll be too far wrong with him, because he'll like the track and he won't mind the ground. Now we know that. But yeah, it's difficult to sort of have a really cast iron view to the full field. And I don't think you're going to get something collapsing in the market. You might get the odd 1 or 2 going in every now, but I think you'll still get a fair price about most of these.
Yeah, so maybe more a case of just keeping an eye on horses who's going to turn up rather than.
I think so. Yeah, Southfield Stone. I think he might want to go right-handed.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best way with him.
Tony?
My notes are saying I think it's just an absolute minefield.
Yeah.
You've got horses double and triple enters. I agree that Itchy Feet, I would have no problem with that being favourite. Whether or not he should be as short as 11-4 in places as we speak here, I'm not so sure. But there's nothing really much between a whole lot of these. It all depends on who's going to turn up. The way Nicky Henderson was talking about Epitone, if the ground does dry out for that one, maybe that mare getting weight could well be bouncing back, and given the price she was at Cheltenham, maybe 14-1 is maybe on the big side. But again, she'll have to settle. She'll have to perform a lot better than she did at Cheltenham. But Aintree might be more her track, but it just looks an absolute minefield. If this was the final, if we knew what the final runners, if the 5-day entries were the overnight decks, I'd still be scratching my head. But as we don't know what's going to run, it's very difficult to have a firm opinion at this stage.
A horse I just want to ask you both about is Rouge Fiv, who looks. We don't know whether or not again another double entry could be running in the longer trip on Saturday, and with Andrew Brooks also having the favourite Itchy Feet, you wonder if they want to run together. But seems maybe to be a forgotten horse in this race a little bit. Ran behind Mr. Fisher, but since then has run very well twice, missing out Cheltenham as well. So this has been Aintree's been the plan.
He doesn't look an obvious Grade 1 horse. I mean, watched him run, but you wouldn't want to underestimate him out of hand completely. He beat Getaway Trump, fair enough, at Kelso, and 1 or 2 other decent horses as well. But if you look at his race at the time before at Newcastle, when he scrambled home at a very short price, you think, well, that's not good enough, is it?
And I guess Mr. Fisher hasn't gone on to really.
Not really, no. Although I do think Mr. Fisher's a little bit more of a player in this race than he is in the Super back on a flat track.
But they both beat Thomas Darby all heads up as well.
Yeah, but the Kempton run, you got to remember when he split Mr. Fisher and Thomas Darby, he was giving them £5 at Kempton as well. So it was a good effort there. Although the win last time came when the favourite underperformed, but again, you can go through all of these and give them a chance of sorts. I just thought it was a real tricky race.
Nick, anything to add?
As the boys said, it's where they're going to run, but I'll flag up another one where it could go 2 mile or 2.5. Horse of David Pipes, probably not on everyone's radar just yet. A horse called Imbrigado. I was lucky enough to win a bumper on him at Utoxeter early part of the season. He's now unbeaten. He's won 2 novice hurdles very impressively. Well, not impressively, he just kept doing enough. But after riding him, I just felt he only does what he has to do to win. And I was really impressed with him the last day at Exeter. He's been looked after by David Pipe, and they left Cheltenham alone to go to Aintree. He cost 180,000 from the Irish point-to-point field. is unbeaten since he's come to England, and I just think he's a progressive type. And if he did go 2 mile, he'd be strong to stay at that and wouldn't mind the softer ground. So he's just not. I think I looked. He's
14 to 1. Yeah, 14 to 1 with Ball Sports.
Just outside the box a bit. Unbeaten, and you just wouldn't quite know how good he is because he only ever does enough. So I really liked him when I wanted him at your Toxter, and he's certainly a horse to have in your radar.
A few horses there to keep an eye on. We'll move on now to the Mildmay Novices Chase, where top of the game is the 8 to 11 favourite, and Le Bagarrois is the 94 second favourite, but I think we probably expect her to run on Thursday. As such, Lost in Translation has been well back today into 7 to 2, and then Bags Groove 12 to 1, who we, again probably don't think will run here. Mr. Whip 12 to 1, Chris's Dream 14 to 1, Spirit of the Games 14 to 1. So top of the game, the heavily now odds-on favourite. Andy, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think the crucial thing in life, really, even more so in horse racing, is to hold your hands up sometimes and say you got it wrong, and to learn from your mistakes and not repeat them. So much so that with top of the game, I've totally changed my opinion on him. I just thought he might have had a bit of a glass chin. He might be always one of those horses that threatens to deceive and then doesn't quite go through with it. But I think he really come of age in the RSA. And for me, pound for pound, the RSA was one of the best novice chases we've seen for a long, long time. It just looked a good race going into it. We had 3 stellar horses, and the fact that they were 1, 2, 3, that usually tells you that it was cleanly run, and the form should stand up.
Yeah.
It's not the champion where all the main protagonists went and we're left thinking what might have happened. With this race, the cream came to the top and they charged up the hill in a really good finish. Now, that was the second quickest chase time I got throughout the festival. The Gold Cup was the best one, furlong per furlong, but this one was the next best. And astonishingly as well, and this is also the other thing I'm really want to flag up, is that top of the game would have beaten Altior. If you do the screen by screen thing, you set it off when they jump the one in front of the stands, and then do it to the winning line. He's finished ahead of Altior. Again, it's incredible, isn't it? I know you almost think that can't be right, but he would have beaten Altior. So not only did he have to run a mile, already he's managed to then beat a champion chaser over 2 miles. And I said it's quite an incredible RSA this year. So much so that I actually flagged up all 3 horses for next year's Gold Cup, thinking surely one of them will end up going off very close to favourite in the Gold Cup. Top of the game was 12 to 1, 14 to 1 after the race. Delta Work was an astonishing 33 to 1, which was ridiculous considering he made at least 3 or 4 abysmal jumps on the way around. If he would have jumped better, I think he would have been a massive player.
And Santini with that prep and
that he had. That's why I thought, well, I've got to put all 3. There's no negatives. They all ran their race. There was all positives rather than negatives. But ultimately, going back to this race, now Le Bagarrois is out of the race. I mean, this is a penalty kick. He's a star, this horse. He's jumping, by the way, at Cheltenham. And because of his size and his scope, and he's literally just almost looks like stepping over them. Incredible. He just got so much scope. He could be anything, this fella. And there's the rest of them, even in the greatest respect to Lost in Translation, they're just not in the same category as this horse.
Tony, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you won't find me tipping or backing 8 to 11, but yeah, I wouldn't have any issue with people take their price if that's their bag. We come back to the issue is it was such a huge performance in an incredibly strong race. Is it going to recall off the back of that? But if he runs to anywhere near that kind of level of form, then he will win this. But like I said, there's always that doubt, the 8, that Cheltenham's or Aintree doubt, isn't there? But like I said, that RSA just looks as strong as form as novice chase form as we've seen in recent years. If you are looking for one, Tocqueville Ben, bounced back last time. Will go from the front, but like I say, a peak form top of the game, and the one that we saw at Cheltenham will win this, and maybe 8 to 11 could well be a very good price, but I don't play at those kind of prices.
I won't back him either. I mean, even though I've extolled his virtues and saying he's the second coming, it still makes no appeal. I mean,
just watch him win and enjoy it.
Well, it's kind of one where you can say, if someone turn around to you and said actually it's top price 2's on, you wouldn't probably have much issue with that either, would you? But I just don't. My records and my punting history suggest I shouldn't really be playing 8 to 11 in a horse race.
I mean, can we move on to the Melling Chase now, Nick? Do you have anything you want to take on the favourite there, or do you think it's the...
Generally, I've never looked at top of the game, but as I touched on earlier, I was in Paul Nichols's, and I seen top of the game come out, and he is a mightily impressive horse. He must be
17 too.
like he just, you look at him and think, if anything was if anything was going to be a Gold Cup horse, it's him, and you can see why he nearly won a Coral Cup and he won an EBF final. So he was the hurdler, but how he ever did that, it just shows the class the horse has. I think he could, it could be England's hope for a Gold Cup next year.
Exciting stuff. On to a cracking race now, the Melling Chase, where we've got, it's pretty tight at the top with Politolog, the 5-2 favourite. Surname, so impressive last time at 7-2. Waiting patiently 7-2. Min, 5-1. Road to Respect, 6-1. 12-1. Bar. We're rattling through these on the Friday. And Andy, how are you making sense of this at the top end?
Well, Paul Nicholls and connections as well threw a spanner in the works, haven't they, with Surname?
Yeah.
Given that he's got such an amazing record going right-handed, you'd think that they'd stick down that route, maybe taking a Punchestown and sign off for the season, but maybe the law of Aintree is just too big for some. But he is up against Politolog. Politolog obviously loves it here at Aintree. He's a much better horse going left-handed. I'm not saying Surname, he's in a left-handed track because he's run well here before.
I was surprised if they both run against each
other.
I know. Interestingly, a little bit of a drift today on Surname, out to 7-2.
Yeah, I think they might just have a little bit of a rethink. Hang on a minute. Particularly if Paul's adamant connections, with John Hales, right, we're definitely going. And like I said, there is other big races to have with Surname towards the back end of the year. There's a Sandown race, maybe if they wanted to go down that route.
I think Paul said earlier in the week that they were leaning towards giving it a miss and then going to Sandown.
Yeah.
They bump into a certain altitude, but I think that's the reason why bookmakers are keen to nudge it out.
In that case, Politolog is probably the bet here, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's the safety numbers bet. He's not the greatest bet at the moment. I suppose of all the 9 or 4 shots you'd ever see in a season, but I think he's a worthy favourite. And then you've got waiting in the wings here. I see there's been a bit of money for him. He almost looks certain to come here.
You think that might be because of Surname coming out as well?
That's probably the case.
It's probably because obviously Lady Buttons is going elsewhere. Road to Respect's been firmed up earlier week. But it's like I said, it's the Surname situation. I think the plan was to always to give this a miss, but I think Paul said earlier in the week you would only really consider it if they got a lot of rain. Now they got a lot of rain on Monday night, and there was a lot of rain forecast on Thursday as well. So whether or not they do chance their arm there, and it will be given its lofty rating after what he did at Ascot, he will be. That we won't be 100. He won't be 7-2. It'll be 7-4, and south of that as well, given what he did there. But like I said, it all depends. It all depends on that. The fact that Nicky Henderson is now running one in the Grand National might just prompt Paul to say, let's get a bit more prize money under the board by running Surname here. But if Surname rocks up, then I think it will take a good one to beat him.
Be interesting to see which Harry Cobden rides. You'll obviously have the choice, and it would be a difficult decision between. I would find it be a lovely position to choose, but it'd be very hard to pick the both of them.
As a jockey in those situations where it's literally a toss of the coin, would you just say to Nicholls, "You make the decision for me"?
They're quite big owners as well.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
So whichever one you choose will be the wrong one, effectively, in the long run, but.
Yeah.
Could be getting off King George winner in Surname.
I'd put that one back on the trainer myself.
Yeah. Andy, you've been a fan of Min in the past as well.
Yeah.
Not a great showing last time out. So is this? If you draw a line through that run, this is a massive price at 5-1.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just such an uncharacteristically poor run by Min. That just shows you that perhaps he's not quite mentally always the full ticket. He's a little bit of a what side of bed he gets out of kind of horse. And for him, that was just a run that you just start to have the alarm bells ringing with a little bit. The one that caught my eye, funny enough, going back to the Champion Chase, was Hell's Kitchen. That was it's almost like they had a prep run in that race. They used that as a stepping stone for something. What it ends up being, I don't know whether it's this or whether it's Punchestown. But for a horse who's got a lot of natural exuberance. He often goes off in front, like he did at Ascot when he beat Janika. They dropped him at the back. It was unbelievable. It was almost like you couldn't believe what you were watching.
But I think everyone went out in that race to beat Altior and just queued up behind.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was sort of just to be. And Pardara Jacob, no one would have took him on to 2 out, would they?
No.
They were all going to have one crack at him, and then.
I think that's right. I think they all got together and rode that tactically and said,
Yeah.
let's ride to get out of your beaten rather than
Ride
their own race.
Yeah.
And
And
obviously that way it looked.
That's what they did with political blog as well, didn't it? Yeah.
Corey, I saw your tweet saying it never went odds against this. Never went odds against Article.
No, it really. Sometimes I know people are at the track and stuff like that, but people do have phones, and people say, oh yeah, it's the first time it's ever really looked like getting beaten in its career. Well, didn't go above evens in running, and the year before it traded at 7-1 against. I mean, although you have to have your own opinions with your own eyes, and the in-running market is a law unto itself, but if you go back and look at the race, given the way the horse always finds, it's not surprising that it didn't go even money, and given maybe the horses around him. But the thing about Min, coming back to Min, is they were quick to blame themselves rather than the horse. The connections weren't there. We rode him differently, and perhaps but I didn't think they rode him that much differently to the way they normally ride him. It would concern me the way the horse just didn't fire, but. Horses have off days, and I think it sounds like the plan is to come here. And if he does bounce back, it would have a very good chance in the absence of Surname, perhaps the likely absence of Surname. But I just thought I think this is a really, really tricky race, and probably one where you just want to wait until we get the final decks.
Yeah. From a trappy race to a very open race now, on to the Topham, where Janika, who looked to bump into a very well handicapped horse at Cheltenham, is the 10-1 favourite. Beware the Bear next up, who obviously had a good time, had a successful run at Cheltenham, is 12-1, Ultra Gold 14-1, Theatre Territory 14-1, Call It Magic 16s, Ballyhill 16s, Adrian DuPont 16s, 18-1 bar. Andy, you said that this, in the Thursday episode, you said that this was a race that you liked. We're not going to be able to spend too much time on it because we're slightly against the clock, but what are you looking at here?
Well, like I said to you earlier on in the piece, I think San Benedetto's arguably got the best 2.5 flat track form this season over a similar layout at Newbury, but he would want the ground no worse than good to soft. To be interested to see how it does pan out on the Friday. He'd be a player if everything was rosy in his garden, and I'd certainly give Theatre Territory a shout. Yeah. Horse that finds winning difficult, but again you've got a horse that's been around the track before, ran well in the race last year beyond Ultra Gold. We've got Sam Whaley coming on board. We've got hardly any weight. I mean, if he does get in, I think he's right the way down. Number 36 on the card, but there's 30 for a maximum 30. There's a good chance of him getting in. And the other one I quite like is Peregrine Run. Peter Fye's campaigner. He hardly ever runs a bad race against some very, very good opponents over in Ireland. He's always taken on the best, like Denario de Zobo, Woodland Opera, Snow Falcon. And he caught my eye the other day. They ran him over hurdles off the back of a 140-day break. Straight away I thought, I'm just going to watch him say he runs here, because there's clearly the running over hurdles that they're using that as a stepping stone for a chase of some description. So obviously I'm thinking maybe Fairy House or Punchestown. And I saw him declared for this, and I thought, I wonder if they've had the top on my mind for a long time with him, because he's that twilight horse. He stays through, but he's very effective over 2.5. So this being a 2 mile 6. Flat out, gallop all the way around on goodish ground, good soft ground, will be ideal for him. Obviously, he's not been over the fences, so that's a little bit of a slight concern. So I think if you're backing one that you're guaranteed of handling the fences and has been there before and done it, is Theatre Territory, and the other one is definitely Peregrine Run, who's another one to consider.
Theatre Territory 14-1, Peregrine Run 20-1 best price with Labrooks and Coral, although Betfair and Paddy Power have cut to 12-1 today, so that could be a price that isn't going to last too long. Tony, what have you flagged up?
I like 3 in this. Theatre Territory is very, very obvious. What I would say before this, I would wait until the final decks before you have your bet, because it's a 30-runner race. You will get some firms betting to 6 places, possibly 7, given the nature of the race. But Theatre Territory just looks £2 lower than third last year. Ran poorly at Wincanton, but I think Warren Graychick said, she didn't really like the track there. So yeah, that's very solid. I can see that starting at single figure price. For all, it's a very competitive race. I will be tipping that or Call It Magic, who broke my heart when trading at 1.54 and running in the Beecher. I think the step down in trip will really suit that, and I think Monday night's rain and maybe some more rain on Thursday will really kind of balance up against that one coming down in trip. So I think Call It Magic is the way it just jumped and travelled for a long way in the Beecher, and it stuck on well, but that was 3 mile 2 and soft. I think that's a player that comes over. And one I've been looking at all season, I've had a couple of bets on it as well, and it ran a lot better, albeit over further last time, is Flying Angel. It's got a really good Aintree record, and I really like the angle of that coming back in 2 mile 5. I'm not sure it totally is at his best over 3 mile plus, or even though it ran well last time. I can see Flying Angel, if he takes his chance, running really well here. So my 3 against the field. I'm not sure. It all depends on what prices they are on the day after the fields have firmed up. So Field of Charity, Call It Magic, and Flying Angel are my 3 against the field at this point.
Flying Angel 25 to 1. Fifth Searcher, as I mentioned, that's a double one there for Andy, and for Tony's 14 to 1. And Call It Magic 16 to 1 with Ladbrokes, Bet365, and a couple of other firms. Quick word on San Benedetto, Nick, who you rode to victory last time. It was the horse's first win for a fair while as well. What chance would you give him in this company?
Yeah, look, he's a former Grade 1 winner around Aintree, albeit lucky because Politolog fell. But if you had Politolog off 11-4 in this race, you'd fancy him. So. But he is ground dependent. Look, if he has good ground, big chance. If he doesn't, no chance. But he scored very well over the Aintree style fences. I scored him last week. Jumped very well. Jumped with Aintree DuPont, who I would fancy even if it come up soft. It's been held up round Kempton, was well fancied. Kempton would be the sort of track you'd like to hold up on if they get out on the front end. He didn't have much luck in running. I thought he ran very well. I think he's the classiest horse in the race. For me, Adrian DuPont, if he turned up, would have a big chance. But, if Ultra Gold turned up, he's also in the National. If it is coming up soft, Ultra Gold could switch back from the top and won the race the last 2 years. Would have a massive chance, as well as Warrior's Tale. You'd put him with a big chance if they pulled him out of the National if the ground did go soft, so they could drop that back into the top end. So horses like that, like the boys said, you'd want to be waiting till Thursday before you have a look, really. And
worth mentioning as well, on the Odds Checker grids, you can see the place terms at the top. So check in on Friday morning. You can see each firms and what place terms they're offering, because in a race of this nature, you're going to get some crazy place terms, 6s, 7s, maybe even more. Adrian DuPont, as Nick, you said, is 16 to 1, currently best price. Are you likely to take on the run of San Benedetto here? Or?
Yeah, I'm down on San Benedetto if he runs. Yeah.
Okay, fingers crossed there. San Benedetto.
Is that positive or a negative, Andy? Him on it?
He knows the horse well. he rode the horse well last time out in a strongly run race and got him round, got him jumping. So
I'll give you Paul's number. You just tell him.
20 to 1 currently.
He'll be watching himself, sure.
Yeah, exactly. You can send him the link.
If you want to stick to continuity, then you use the jockey that got the best out of him, surely.
Spot on. I couldn't agree more.
You're looking for an agent's job?
I've got nothing to plate, thanks.
Finally, because there aren't any prices at the moment for the Aintree bumper, so we're going to talk about the Sefton, the novices hurdle here, which is the penultimate race on Friday. Champ is the 3 to 1 favourite. Dallas to Picton 9 to 2. Emma Tom for Greatrix 9 to 2. Lisnagar Oscar, Andy, who I know you liked for the Albert Bartlett, but didn't quite live up to the billing, but ran an okay race anyway at 8 to 1. 14 to 1 bar.
Yeah, I must admit, I've never been so disappointed with a horse's finishing effort as Lisnagar Oscar. When you back something and you're watching it all the way around, you think everything's going great. He's jumping, he's travelling, he's in the right position. I was so confident at the top of the hill. I was like, right, this is going to come off. Given how he finished his race off at Haydock, he was so strong in the back end. But having gone back and watched it again, he just literally had wheel spin. The ground was churned up. Obviously, it was on the Friday, and it was really sloppy ground. And you go back to look at his Haydock run when the ground was good. He was able to quicken and really lengthen, and he just got stuck in the mud. He literally just couldn't pick his feet out of the ground. So I'd certainly give him the benefit of the doubt, but I think the key to him is good ground or goodish ground. If it went soft and they had a lot of rain, obviously on the Friday, it's towards the back end of the day, and that ground becomes sloppy, and it does get really poachy there, can't it? At Aintree, very tiring ground. I'd have my concerns about him again, having to evaluate him again. Champ, whether he'd get 3 miles, I wouldn't be necessarily sure. He strikes me as being a little bit of an okay corral, a bit of a flashy boy, a bit of a flash Henry. Whether he's an out-and-out stayer, I don't know.
It was interesting, just on Lisnagar Oscar, it was interesting that I thought Lisnagar Oscar and Alaho were the two horses that travelled the best in that race.
They did.
And then both of them just competed.
Absolutely, yeah. It just shows you how
coming around the final, but just approaching the final band, you thought he was going to kick on and win.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of those too. I mean, Ruby was sitting so still and both of them just completely.
Absolutely, I was literally like spellbound, dumbstruck. Sorry, not spellbound, dumbstruck that he didn't even finish in the frame.
Spellbound, then dumbstruck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. There's two horses in this race that I think are definitely worth more than the second lot because they're going to come here under the radar, fresher than most, and yet I've got them doing some very good numbers on the smaller venues, if you like. Now, Henry de Bromhead won the Albert Bartlett, who'd finished behind Allaho at Clonmel the time before. Yeah. So I'd say he's got a rough idea of what it takes to required to win this. He runs a horse called Walkaway, just had the 2 runs in the same colours as Chris's Dream. And he won a race at, I think it was Clonmel Thurleys the other day. He beat a horse I put up called Final List. I couldn't believe how easily he brushed aside Final List because he'd run well in some good novice race. And then Final List went to left down the other day and bolted up. So that form's taken an instant boost. And I've noticed he's an entry in this race. He's got a hell of a lot of talent. So definitely keep an eye on him. And the other one's a horse that Venetia runs, Geordie B. He beat a good field. He beat a horse called Shambar Sharjah very comfortably at Lingfield when the ground was bottomless. It was all about stamina that day because he didn't look like he was going to win, but then outstayed the winner. Then that horse has gone on to win twice since. Bit of a disappointing in the per terms, but unfortunately Richard Johnson went round the inside on the worst ground, which is again well documented. You can't do that, it's a schoolboy error. But his form actually ties him with some very good novices, and he was in the Albert Bartlett trial race that Liz Nagarovska ran in, but he got pulled out on the day. He was only about 7 or 8 to 1 shot, really? But the ground was too quick for him. They didn't run, so they obviously think he's a Grade 1 horse. You know, having even decided to put him in that race that day at Haydock. So he comes off the back of a win the other day at Exeter, again staying on very strongly in the latter part of his race. He's 20 to 1. If the ground is soft, I'd also give him a mention.
Yeah. Walkaway 14 to 1, Geordie B 20 to 1. Tony?
I think given the way the Martin Piper has panned out in recent years, I think Dallas the Pictop's an obvious one in here. I think it's again another strong winner of that race. The problem, you can't be backing him because he's actually got 4 entries this week, including in Ireland at the weekend as well as Aintree. So I think Dallas the Pict, I don't think it's not a too flash of price given the running down. So I'll definitely hold fire there. But coming back to the Venetia Williams horse, I do know a fair few people were absolutely gutted that he didn't take his chance at Cheltenham, especially what he went and did subsequently. So yeah, I would concur that. And like I said, I come back to the fact if the Thursday weather forecast proves correct, I think we will be looking at soft ground on Friday, if not on Thursday as well.
Nick?
Champ for me.
Yeah?
Yeah, just for me, he's got the best form. Thought he ran really well in the Ballymore. I think he's settling that little bit better now, so for me, yeah, I think his best form in the race wins.
That step up and chip, not an issue?
No, Barry's very good at, Barry have that in the back of his head. I think he can be as cool as you like. For me, he's just got the best form and his best horse. And
best horse wins?
Best horse wins.
It's really weird, isn't it, how sometimes you warm to horses straight away, and even though they run to a level of form that you have to massively respect, I've never warmed to Champ, even though, the Cello win, even though, like I say, on the back of that, he's probably the one to beat in here, but it's the kind of horse I will never entertain. I can't put my finger on why, but I wouldn't really trust him. But yeah, I think Dallas de Picton will be the one to beat if he turns up here, but that's a fair if given these multitude of entries.
Dallas de Picton's 9 to 2 second favourite behind Champ at 3 to 1. The final race of the day is the Bumper. No odds as it is at the moment, so we can't really spend much time on it, and we need to move on anyway, but if there's any entries anyone wants to flag up currently?
It's a race I'll just probably
just watch.
Yeah, well, not necessarily, but I'd rather just
Wait,
if McFabulous runs in, I think he's a good horse.
Okay.
He tanked his way through that Newbury race. He made the run in. Looked like he was going to get swamped and kicked again. I think he's a smart horse.
And he met the Queen the other day, didn't he?
Yeah. Were you there for that?
No. And not invited.
No invite.
Good stuff. Well, that comes to the end of our Friday Aintree Grand National Meeting preview podcast and video. We've already done one for Thursday. We're about to do one for Saturday, so please listen or watch those. And thank you very much to my guests for sharing their insight on the day's racing.
Don't be a fool. Bet with Odds Checker for the Grand National.